tells me that I'm live, I never trust it. I don't know why, but I just don't trust it. But good morning, everybody. Today is May the 12th, and a week, next week, a week today, I'm celebrating my birthday, but I'm also celebrating the birthdays of lots of other people who have birthdays on or around my birthday. I know it's not fair. We should celebrate everybody's birthday, whether it's January, February, or whatever. But hey, you can see how selfish I am now, can't you? I'm only celebrating my birthday month, this month. So before we begin our show, The Spirit World Sees All, and they do, and we're going to be talking about that in a minute. Oh boy, are we going to be talking about that in a minute. Yes, it's scary stuff. Let me tell you, really scary stuff we're going to be talking about today. Before we do that, first of all, I'd like to say good morning to Grey Eagle, who is, as always, standing to my right side. And good morning, Chris. How are you today?
Good morning, Rosemary. Well, it's a nice sunny day here, so that uplifts the mood any day. So I'm great.
Well, it's beautiful here. It's sunny and glorious and just, it's a perfect day. You know, people think that Florida is this awfully hot, incredibly hot, stifling, awful state. But actually, see, I live near the ocean. I'm like, as the crow flies, as the crow flies, shall we do that again? My teeth are getting looser and looser as we go along. I'm just kidding when I say that. Right. As the crow flies, we're in 1 mile, I think, as the crow flies. I like to put it into context, we are all of 5 to 7 minute drive from some of the most beautiful beaches um, that you've ever seen. I mean, Florida has beautiful, beautiful beaches, especially on the west coast, and so we're very fortunate. But because we're close to the ocean, we get all of those wonderful cool breezes. And last night I was sitting at my neighbour's house. I'd been invited for dinner, and the breezes were beautiful. The evening was warm. It was one of those perfect nights, and today is a perfect day. I've been out this morning. I've been looking at all of the deadheading that I've got to do. I think I'm going to wait for my friend to do that for me, because just leaning over to deadhead hurts my back somewhat. I'm muttering away. I'm muttering on. You all want to know what's so scary about this morning, don't you? You want to know what's scary stuff we're going to be talking about today. Now, when I talk about scary stuff, people think of ghosts and ghouls and things that go bump in the night. But actually, the scary stuff is really the title of this show, The Spirit World Sees All. So, with Chris's permission, I'm going to talk a little bit about the conversation that Chris and I had the other day. Am I allowed to talk about it, Chris?
Yes, you are allowed to talk about it.
Okay, before we go any further, is there anybody
There is I should say there are people here, and don't forget tomorrow is Dean's birthday. Were you going to sing him happy birthday?
there? Of course, I'm going to sing him happy birthday. And anyone else whose birthday it is in May, all you've got to do is, ask me. I shall sing you a birthday song. Dean, get ready if you're there. If you're around, get ready. Um, let's see. Does this mean now? Are you a Taurus, Dean? You might have just made it into the Taurian space, or are you an Aries? You need to let me know that before I sing you happy birthday. If you're a Taurian, you're going to get a really blasting good song. If you're not, well, might not put so much effort into it. Anyway, so, all right. So, we're going to start off with a story about Chris and I and her and a conversation that we're having now. It happens for different reasons that Chris and I are both cleaning out. you know how years ago, everybody, certainly in England, you got to spring, first day of spring, and it was spring cleaning with a vengeance. Now, spring cleaning means, going into your closets, going into the cupboards, going under the floorboards almost, going under the carpets, taking the carpets out and laying them over the clothesline and beating the heck out of them. I mean, we're talking serious spring cleaning. Now, that's not what I've been doing. I don't think it's really what Chris has been doing. But once you start sorting out, well, anything can happen, anything. And and so Chris and I were talking about a desk, or a couple of desks that Chris has. And it was only, she said, when she saw them with the sun on them that she realized just how dilapidated they were. But they were what her daddy made for her. So, of course, that comes with all sorts of, you want to hold on to something for sentimental value and all the rest of it. So we were talking about this, and Chris was in a little bit of a dilemma, saying to me, I just don't know, she said. I want to keep them because my dad made them for me. But at the same time, when I look at them, they're so dilapidated. And, I don't want to sort of throw them in the junk. I want to keep them. But where am I going to keep them? Where am I going to put them? What am I going to do with them? They need somebody to maybe repair them or work on them and so on. Anyway, and she's talking away, and she's deliberating over what should she do with these really old, dilapidated, completely sort of, they're disintegrating before her eyes. What should she do with them? Because my dad made them. And I hear quite clearly in my ear this deep voice saying to me, junk. And I said, oh. And Chris looked at me and she said, what? And I said, well, and I told her what I'd heard. And she said, that's my dad. I said, I think it is. So, so sometimes we have to take a grip, get a grip, and take a grip on reality. And do we really want to have this junk in our lives for the rest of our lives, or do we want to be sensible and just junk it, or whatever it's called? So then, of course, now all of a sudden, so Chris is, oh, okay, well, I guess, yeah, and he's right, and they are, and so on. And I guess, that's going to help me considerably with my decision. On and on it was. But then the tables were turned on me, because here I am, and I've just said, I also am having a cleaning out, clearing out, getting rid of stuff. And I'm getting rid of so many beautiful clothes, because I keep my clothes, even if they might be 20 or 30 years old, I keep my clothes in immaculate condition. I think I mentioned that I'm a laundry fiend, and I am a laundry fiend, it's true. So I was talking to my daughter the other day, and I was talking about some of the stuff, and that I was going to give some away to people, and a lot of it's gone to Goodwill already. I'm going to give a lot more to Goodwill. And she says, wait a minute. She said, that St. John stuff you've got, you're not giving that to anybody else. And I said, yes, but I don't wear it anymore, and I don't, blah, blah. And she said, you are not giving it to anybody else. I want first dibs on that. And then I called her later to say, there's an Oscar de la Renta top hit. I'm having it. That's mine. Yes. And so, see, my junk, which is, it's not really junk, but my junk is going somewhere else to be somebody else's, let's say, junk. But then, as I say, the tables were turned, because as Chris is still talking to me about her desks, my father stands in front of me and mentions the ironing board. And I say to Chris, Yeah, I know how you feel, because my dad, years ago when I first got married, we're talking of hundreds of years ago now. My dad, when I first got married, he made me an ironing board, and I just can't part with it. Now it's got to be at least 20 years, if not 30 years, since I used that ironing board, because it's wood, it's heavy. You know, when you need muscles to lift it and open it up. Now in its day, it was perfect. It was great, and my father did a fantastic job. Um, but anyway, and now it's sitting in the garage. It's been sitting there for years and years and years and years, and I come across it because I'm cleaning out. Now, what do I do? You see, we've got this dilemma, haven't we? And so, uh, really, when we say the spirit world sees all, they see everything, to the point where, and this is true, there have been times when I've been giving consultations to somebody and they say, we want to talk to my mother, my father, whatever it is. And, uh, and the mother says, don't you think it's time you sorted out that bedroom, and the dust under that bed? It's been years since you cleaned it out. Uh, and the poor client who's listening to me sort of thinks, oh my God, can she see how dirty my house is? The answer is yes. Um, uh, you know, often I've been told by the spirit world, or not I've been told, but people have been told, you need to get all those dishes washed, and the way that you keep them, get rid of them and start tidying up a bit. You'll be much happier if you tidy up. And it's like, people look at me, they really, they can see that. Yep, they can see that. And I had an occasion years ago. I was in a hall filled with people, hundreds and hundreds of people, and the, this woman put her hand up, and her father and mother were there. Had come from the spirit world to talk to her. Okay, and so she was thinking. Apparently, she was thinking of selling a house. So I said to her, "Your parents tell me that you're thinking of selling the house. Is that right?" And she said, "Oh well, yes, but how did you know?" And I said, "Well, here's how I know. Your father is telling me you really need to get the crack on that tile behind your sink fixed before you think of putting the house up for sale." And then he proceeded to go through the house and tell her what else needed to be fixed, and what else they'd half started a job on and hadn't finished. And then we went up into the attic, and her parents said to her, and she knew perfectly well what they were talking about, "You started work in the attic because you've got a leak up there, but it never got finished. You want to sell that house, you better get cracking." The spirit world sees all. Isn't that a scary, scary thing to think about? That they really see all of the places that you don't clean. They really see all the places that that you should have done something but you don't. And as I am going through my closets and my shoes, I mean, I'm ashamed to tell everybody, but I sent over 50 pairs of shoes to Goodwill, because I like shoes, and I've still probably got at least 30 pairs left. Anyway, so whatever your house is like, whatever your closets are like, whatever you think that you're hiding from other people, you just simply can't hide from the spirit world. I don't know if that makes us more inclined to keep cleaner, or go the other way and say, oh well, this is who I am, so put up with it. I'm not sure. But the spirit world can see the smallest crack in a tile. The spirit world can see the smallest leak under the sink. They can see whatever it is they need to see. I'm going to tell you one more story, then we're going to open it up. And I hope you've got your stories for me too. If you've got any dust bunnies under the bed, what will you be doing this afternoon? Will you be vacuuming them out, or will you be saying to your mum and dad, too bad, this is me? Anyway, I was at there's a very famous house in Sarasota. It's called the Courtesan, and it is where Mabel and John Ringling lived, and it's a huge house. It's open to the public. People have tours all the time, and I knew the curator of this place, who gave me several tours actually when all the other people had let's say gone home and there were no other tourists around. We got the private tour where the ropes came down and we were able to really go into the rooms and really take a look and see what, you know, what's there, what's not there. And John and Mabel Ringling. John Ringling is the person who created the Ringling Circus, so he's very famous for that. And in the Sarasota area, everybody knows who he is. So his and Mabel's house, this huge mansion, is kept exactly as it was when they were alive, and it's like a museum, and it's beautiful. And they have beautiful furnishings, beautiful everything. It's a beautiful place. So as my friend was taking me around, he took me into Mabel's bedroom, and of course we got to open the drawers and look inside and all the things that the regular tourists are not allowed to do. And then we went into John Ringling's bedroom, and in that bedroom there's sort of like a standing wardrobe, what I would call a wardrobe, with glass doors, and when you look through the doors, all of his jackets are all lined up, all color coordinated and everything is neat and tidy. And then on the bottom you can see where all of his shoes are, all lined up, toes forward and all lined up and perfect and so on. And the only person who had the key to this wardrobe was my friend who was with me, and he'd been the curator and helped to renovate the place, and he's, you know, his heart and soul was in all of this renovation, and it was his, let's say it was his baby, and it was his pride and joy. So imagine his shock and horror when I'm looking at the shoes, and looking, everything's neat and tidy, the jackets, everything, his ties are in the right place and so on. And I said to him, I said to my friend, oh, it's a shame about the shoes there. And I pointed to a pair of shoes. He said, what do you mean it's a shame? I said, well, the back of the shoe's been broken down. And he looked at me like, you know, I'd said, I just threw your baby in the ocean. And he looked at me and said, no, Rosemary, definitely not. I put those shoes. I know what they know. I said, okay, then, well, all I'm saying is that the back of that one shoe, and you couldn't see the back because the jackets were over the top of the back of the shoes. The back of that one shoe is broken down. Well, in a panic, he opens the door, pulls it out, pulls the shoe out, and sure enough, the back of the shoe has been broken down. Someone has been in there and thought to try on John Ringling's shoe with a foot. Obviously, that's too big to try on John Ringling's shoe, and have broken the back down. He was mortified, but he looks at me. Now, he knew what I did, right? He also knew at this point that John and Mabel were walking around with us and talking to me and telling me different things as we're walking around. So it was John Ringling who'd actually said to me that shoe, you know, it's broken. Anyway, so my friend is now looking at me like I've got horns coming out of my head, because even though he knows what I do, it's very hard, isn't it, for people to understand. And even when you're listening to me now talking to you about these things, it's almost incomprehensible that we should know such fine detail. And how can the spirit world see all, right? Anyway, so now he puts the shoe back, he locks the door, and he's now looking at me as if, you know, what else is she going to see? He takes me into this beautiful bathroom, and he starts to explain to me that all the marble was shipped in from Italy, and there's these great sheets of marble that are on the wall, And they were shipped in from Italy, and they had special people to come in, and he was there. This friend of mine was there when all of this happened, and he oversaw it all. So so imagine his absolute horror when we're sort of standing in the doorway, and it's marble, so you can't really see what's going on, and with the naked eye you couldn't see what was going on either. And the people who cleaned the place couldn't really see what was going on, and nobody knew about the great giant crack in one of the pieces of marble on the wall, until Mabel said to me, "It's a shame about that crack, Rosemary." And I looked at my friend and said, "Yeah, Mabel says it's a shame about the crack." And my friend thought he was going to faint on the spot. Now, I'd already told him about the shoe, so he wasn't going to walk. He said, "No, no, 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 Rosemary. This was a very expensive marble. It was shipped from Italy." And he immediately went up to him. He said to me, "No, no, there isn't a crack. No, you're wrong. No, there isn't a crack." And Mabel said, "Tell him to just push his hands slowly and carefully along, and he'll feel it." And it literally went from high up in one corner, and a crack came all the way down, almost across the corner down. And for the first time in his life, he felt. Now, remember, this is a man who lives in this place, is there at 7 in the morning, and doesn't leave until sometimes really late at night. This is his home as much as it's Mabel and John Ringling's home. And he's mortified when he finds the crack in the marble. The spirit world sees all and is able to tell us in really very quite precise terms sometimes. So, anyone thinking as I'm telling this story, I really need to vacuum under the bed, or it's time I clean my closet out, don't worry. There's no judging going on. Nobody's saying, you're really dirty and you need to clean up. But it's certainly an incentive for me if I think that my house is unclean. Well, I wouldn't like to think it myself anyway. I like to keep it fairly clean. I'm not fanatical about it, but I like to keep it fairly clean. And so just be aware. That's all I'm saying. When we talk about the spirit world sees all, we do this show when we are, watching this show and we see the title "The Spirit World Sees All." It's not just a title that we've come up with, and it's not that they just see all. Here's a scary bit. Are you ready for the really scary bit now? The scary bit is that they also are able to connect with our thoughts, because our thoughts, as you've heard me say before, tiny pulses of energy. Our thoughts are living things, and they go out into the universe, and they are caught. Our thoughts are caught. Our thoughts are caught by our loved ones. They know what we're thinking. They know what we're feeling. I mean, if that isn't scary, I really don't know what is. Chris, how are we doing? This
Well,
feels more like a Saturday show than a Thursday show.
it does, but the important part is not only is it just, simply you can walk into a home and you can feel the environment around you and whether it feels comfortable or not. And that might mean clean and it might not. But you can feel chaos, and the chaos is in your mind when your place is not aligned and fresh and clean and
Well, I
organized.
think that if people have chaos in their home, it reflects what's going on within them. And, maybe they're expressing their chaos in a way of sort of having, when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking my kitchen is in chaos right now. Actually, it's not in chaos as many people would think, but it's getting a good cleaning today, let me tell you. But chaos to me is different perhaps than chaos to other people. But if we go to the people who are like, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Hoarders or Hoarding or whatever that is.
Yes.
And they've started on some of these shows. I've not watched. I have watched them, but I've not watched them for a long, long time. But somebody I know watches them and was telling me that they have a psychologist who goes in there now to help people to understand why they do live in this chaos, why they do feel the need to hoard. And quite frankly, Chris, I think that we all hoard, even in a small way. I'm still holding on to an ironing board that's no use to anybody, never going to be used. And when my daughter comes in here after I'm gone, it's the first thing she's going to do is throw it out. It's not going to be a memory for her that she wants to keep, or a piece of junk that she wants to keep. I'm sorry, Daddy, but it is. Well, he told me it's more. I mean, it's old. I don't think he expected me to keep it forever. Um, but we all hoard in one way or another. We all keep things that are special to us, that have memories that are no use to anybody else, and never going to be any use to us either. But we just, we kind of like them, don't we? But there are people who then take it to extreme, and I think those are people who have issues. That wouldn't we love to get hold of someone like that on our bottom brick?
I was
Uh,
gonna say that's the tool that could
yeah,
help a lot of people get
I
to the
know.
bottom of it.
I know. Why it's not just that you do it and that you need to stop it, it's the understanding of why you do these things or why you think these things. It's the understanding of how you came to be this way. Because if you can't get to the seed, to the root, to the absolute little tiny seed that began it, then that means that seed will just keep growing no matter what you try to do, which is why the bottom brick exercise is so good. Right, I think I've talked enough, and let's open it up, shall we, Chris?
Well, let's start back at the beginning with Dean. Dean says he is definitely a Taurus, and Loretta added on that her son Ryan and she were both born on May 5th. So you
Yeah.
have at least 3 Taurians who are hoping for a happy birthday song.
Okay, so we've got, who have we got? We've got
We have
Dean, definite.
Dean,
Got
Loretta, and Ryan.
Dean, the rest, or to the three of you, this will not be the first time I do this. Are you ready? I'm ready. Happy birthday to you, Dean, Loretta, and Ryan. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. It is May. We are special babies. I have to tell you, May is the best month to be born ever. Happy birthday to all of us.
There you go, and many more.
And many more. Yes.
Maggie is saying, "My mom would say one would have to spring clean the cobwebs inside when we would talk about what was going on in life to move on."
Oh, perfect. I love that. I love that. So I've got a visual of that, and this is again what the bottom brick does. It helps us to locate the cobwebs. It helps us to figure out how the cobwebs came to be there in the first place, and it helps us to then get rid of the cobwebs. But I love that. Yeah, I love that analogy, Maggie. I think that's a great, great visual right there.
All right, I'm trying to keep thematically everything having to do with what you were talking about, but I must say in the chat room we have all kinds of questions related to not what we're talking about.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, I'm just gonna go back up to the top. So Andrew says, "Good afternoon from Blighty." In the
Where's
l I think Andrew's from England
I was going to say,
or
good.
Wales or
Oh,
somewhere up there.
yeah, whereabouts, Andrew, are you? The name implies Scottish heritage, but it might not be. Good old Blighty, good old England, yes.
All right, so he says, "In the last Spirit World Sees All, it was alluded that spirits can see what's coming. There was a mention of a rescue dog for me down the line. Thus, there must be a difference to time there and here.
Yeah.
How do spirits see our timeline? Is there any chance on commenting a bit about how time differs if there is such a thing as time there?"
Well, we have talked about this before, Andrew, so you need to go shuffling back into the series and check it out. But time, there is. Sorry, my Alexa off. Oh, it isn't my Alexa for some weird reason.
Could
What
be
was it?
SIRI in your phone.
That was my iPad. I have no idea what that was. But anyway, so yes, it's a of a different type, a different essence is what I like to say. Uh, Time for us is very differs very much so from time as you would imagine it or as you would equate in the spirit world. It's so hard to explain it, and I'm not even sure if I tried for an hour I could explain it. But we have talked about it before. There is such a thing as time in the spirit world, but very different meaning to the word than we apply it. So, can the spirit world see into the future? Certainly, when I'm looking at the future for people and I'm trying to give them advice about the future and future events, I'll talk to Grey Eagle and I'll check with Grey Eagle. Now, often your family, your loved ones in the spirit world will have been told, especially before a consultation, they will have been told, we're going to talk about this, that, and so on, and we're going to talk about the future and so on. And it is very possible, especially with Grey Eagle, it's very, very possible to look into the future and to see quite clearly certain events and certain opportunities that will present themselves. And I think I'm not sure if we mentioned this on one of our off the cuffs, but I have a client who let me say her family were told certain things that were going to come about. She was told about them from her husband, who obviously had been talking to Grey Eagle and who knew what things, certain things were going to happen. And one of those things in particular was very doubtful. And in fact, even arguable, because the young man who this information applied to said, no, that's definitely no, I'm studying for something else, and that's not going to happen. And then I got a text from my client to say, you'll never guess what happened. And sure enough, the three things that she was told would happen, would definitely happen, happened within a week of me telling her that they would happen. And she was excited and thrilled and couldn't believe it. So some things we know, some things we're told, and we're told, and they happen sooner rather than later. But some things we have to wait for. Some things it might take us a year or so before we see what the spirit world is talking about. And I've certainly been told things. I tell the story in The Eagle and the Rose about the gypsy who I met, who told me about the precious boy that I would one day have, who would be extraordinary, and so on and so forth. And I didn't want any more babies at the time, so I had to wait years for my grandson. But the way that he was described to me, the things that were said to me about him, you could not, absolutely not mistake what it was that I was being told and who it applied to, once I knew what was meant. So yes, the future is it's very possible to see the future. Absolutely.
Sherry's saying, my business has started. It's doing okay, but I feel it could be better. What part should I work on to jumpstart it better?
I think the advertising part of it, the putting it out there and letting people know about it, that's the key. That was an off the cuff one. Did you like that, Chris? It just came to me. There it was. 1 minute I was not looking for that, and the next minute, there it was. Okay.
Well, you are the consummate problem solver. So
Yeah.
not only can you help people with businesses, you can help them with relationships, you can help them with work life, you can help them with personal life.
I just would like to say I am the consummate problem solver, but only because I've got a great team who put the words in my mouth, who help me to see what it is that I need to say. I mean, I do have my own, I am a part of the problem solving, but it's a team that we use. Okay.
All right. Cheryl says, I don't have many, quote, things from my past. I don't hang on to stuff. Even clothes, I wear them till they wear out.
Oh, see, that doesn't happen to me, Sharon.
Cheryl.
Well, who was it? Sorry.
Cheryl.
Cheryl. Sorry, Cheryl. I never, I've never, have I ever, I'm having to think because it's a great claim, but only if it's true. I cannot remember uh, throwing something out because it was worn out or tatty. I don't ever wear clothes out. I'm very careful how I wash them, very careful how I hang them. I am, you know, what can I tell you? I'm really, I don't know. I have my little foibles, a lot of them, and I'm trying to think what the word would be, Chris. When someone's really, really picky and, anal.
I would just say that appearance in so many different ways matters to you. Your kitchen, you love your nice scrubbed counters, you love your laundry to be nice, clean, and pressed. I mean,
And folded properly.
appearance. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm anal. That's all I can say. So I don't know what to say when people say, this is worn out. I can give my clothes to Goodwill or to anyone and they'll think they're new, even if they are 20 or 30 years old. And that goes for shoes as well. I rarely, although I did have a pair of boots when I'm thinking about it, that I had to have resold at least 3 times because I had them for years and years and years and I could not part with them. And I still have them. Anyway, what can I say? Okay, keep going, Chris.
Christine says, hello. Since
Hi.
my last visit, my dear father crossed over. I miss his physical presence. I pray I am open hearted enough to hear him.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Christine. And I'm absolutely certain that he's around you. I'm absolutely certain if you're patient and you listen carefully, that's the trick. If you listen and be open about it, I'm pretty sure he's going to let you know that he's around one way or another. Just look for those signs.
AM says, going to look for a smaller house. How to find the right one? Do you have tips?
Uh, I do actually. Gosh. Yeah, this is something that I'm sort of, we're not me personally, but a very good friend of mine is thinking of moving and finding somewhere else. So my tip would be sort of scour everything. Don't discount anything. Use your intuition. You if it feels good, then consider it. If it but use the feelings that you have. It's sometimes it's an absolute no, definitely not, and listen to that intuition. But sometimes it's a maybe, and so just check on those things when you find a house, when you go into the house, when you go inside. Be quiet. Don't say a word. If your real estate person is talking to you, ask her politely, can you give me a minute here? Because you want the initial feeling, you want to be aware of your initial feelings when you go into the place, and you will feel either, that this is a good place. You might feel indifferent to it, in which case, if you feel indifferent to it, you might want to consider it at some point because you could make it a home. But you want somewhere where you feel, where it's something makes you feel. It either makes you feel warm or cozy, or definitely this is not right. Do not pay attention to the decorations. Do not pay attention to the colors of the house, because you can change those. And so many people go into a house and it's painted red, let's say, and you could not possibly live with those walls, and they walk out discounting a really great property, you don't have to live with the red walls. You can paint them, you can change them. But it's more about the feelings that you have and the sense that you have when you're in that place and you're quiet and you're thinking and you're listening and you're paying attention to your senses. What are you sensing about this house? Does it feel as if it's wrapping around you, or does it feel no? So there are a few of my tips.
Bettis says, I would like to know if my grandmother or Gray Eagle has a message for me about my future concerning my passion for the books. I am always
Follow,
unsure about myself.
okay, better follow the passion. Follow your passion. Follow what you are passionate about. Because the people who are the most successful in life are the people who do what they want to do and they're following their passion.
Cheryl says, for people that have experienced emotional trauma, when they pass, is their spirit healed immediately or do they get treatment for their soul?
I love that question. I think it's, I think that the traumas and the anxieties that people have when they pass, I think some of them are immediately alleviated because, if you're anxious about dying and then you see, okay, it's I'm okay. Oh gosh, look at me, I survived. Those anxieties are, you know, put to rest. People who are sick and so on, when you go to the spirit world, your body is not aching anymore and so on. It is the emotional turmoil and the trouble that you have perhaps dealing with your own self or dealing with some of the things that you've done or said, the effect that you've had on other people. We often will have issues when we are have crossed to the other side. We often have issues. I wish I'd said this, or if only I'd done that. And so, people do get help and they do get guidance. There are healers in the spirit world. There are people who listen to us. There are counselors who are able to help us through things. So it's not quite the same as going to a hospital or going to a therapist's office, but there are people who can help us and alleviate our worst fears and our anxieties.
Barbara says, good morning.
Good morning.
In June, it will be 2 years since I lost my husband. I continue to be heartbroken. He took care of things and was my protector. Based on your talk today, Don must see my anxieties. Can he help me? How can I or any of us feel safe in this world of uncertainty?
I think that first of all, I think it's really important that you understand that the love that you had, uh, you still have. The person that you had in your life, you still have. So many people, I hear so many people suffering with loss who will refer to their spouse or their children or whatever. He used to do this, and he was always this, and so on. And they talk about him or them in the past tense. And I really like to correct people. No, 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 no. Your father was not, he is. Uh, Wait a minute, you can't talk about your mother in that way as if she's in the past, because she's standing right in front of me and telling me, they're telling me these things about you. We have to accept, if we can, that our loved ones, and in this case your husband, is right there and right with you, and a grey eagle is whispering in my ear. You've mentioned June as an anniversary. They would like you, and your husband would like you to celebrate. Now, before you say, oh, no, 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 I couldn't, there's nothing to celebrate, there is a lot to celebrate. You have a love that is still there, still between you. That's a celebration in itself. You had a relationship which was by no means perfect, but it was wonderful. That is something to celebrate. your husband is still there trying to help and to guide you and to watch over you and is keeping you safe, I am told. So you can celebrate that too. I think you have to start to celebrate the things that you have had and still have in a way. I know it's not the way that you want it, but you still have those things. So it's time to celebrate all of those wonderful things that you had, to stop looking at what you don't have now and to start looking at what you did have and that you still have, because your husband is still by your side. Chris.
Rosemary, I think it might be good if you can just, I mean, because we've only got like 15 minutes left, just remind us all about the vision of the woman with no face on the boat, how you started into all this.
Oh, that came out of left field, Chris. Okay, all right. Well, you can read this story in The Eagle and the Rose, and I would advise you to read the story if you want the full details, because as you just pointed out, Chris, we only have a short time. But okay, in the very, very beginning. Now, when I say the very beginning, I mean the very beginning of my working for the spirit world, not when I first saw them, not when I first heard them, because that was ongoing throughout my childhood. I've never known anything different other than seeing, sensing, and being aware of the spirit world. And it was very scary, let me tell you. I did say that this is going to be a scary show. That was really scary. But then these visions, if you like to call them, these experiences, they weren't really visions to me. There were things that were happening to me in the now, in the here and now, every day. And they began to get more and more and more when I really started to seriously worry that I was going crazy. Now, my grandmother Eliza was a patient in the local um, uh, let's say, asylum. She was put away because she used to hear voices, and she heard voices all the time. And everybody knew that Grandma Eliza was crazy. My mother knew her mother Eliza was crazy. And I was told by my mother many, many times throughout my life, if you're not careful, you'll end up like your grandma in the Towers. And the Towers, if you want to check it out, in the city of Leicester in England, the Towers was the institution that you were sent to when you were crazy. If you were deemed to be a nutcase, seriously, having mental health issues. Anyway, so I had all of that going on with me, and I became a recluse. I started to become very much a recluse, and I wouldn't go out anywhere and so on. And in the end, a good friend of mine said, "You're coming with me. I'm not taking no for an answer, and I'll be there at such a time." Now, it happened that on this particular night, my daughter was having a sleepover with a friend. So I had no reason, no excuse to not go out. Part of me really wanted to go out because I was too scared to stay in. But another part of me was too scared to go out. What if somebody saw me? What if somebody heard this craziness? What if somebody caught me out in my craziness and reported me? Now, I had two main fears. The first, like my grandmother, would people look at me and really say that I was crazy because it ran in the family. And the second, more important reason, bigger reason, was if people thought I was crazy, could they take my daughter away from me? So this was why I became a recluse, and this was why I didn't want to show myself in any way to people. I didn't want anyone to suspect that I was anything other than normal. Let's use the word normal, shall we? My friend came, wouldn't take no for an answer, practically dragged me to the car, and we went to this cottage somewhere in the middle of nowhere in the countryside. And we drove there, and when we arrived, the place was full. It was a small living room, but every chair, every corner, every little spot was taken up by people who had come to hear this man speak. There was only one chair that was empty. And my friend grabbed the chair at the back, or was given a chair at the back. There was one chair that was empty, which was the one next to the speaker, which was the one I did not want to sit in, but I had no choice. So I found myself sitting there, All the focus was on the speaker. But as I'm sitting next to him, I could see what he was doing with the cards. And as he was laying down, he was giving a talk on tarot cards. And as he was laying down the cards, I kept thinking to myself, sort of head down, you know, sort of so just you see, looking to see what he was doing. That's me, and that's me, and well, that's me. And at some point, he turned to me and he said, "And these cards are for you." At which point, I kept my head down, our eyes down, not wanting to do anything at all. To cut a long story very short, you've got to read it in the Eagle and the Rose to get the whole story. But for some unaccountable reason, the host of the night looked at me. This was after the man had been discussing tarot cards and so on, and now people were, you know, sort of having a discussion. And the host looked at me and he said, he looked at me, he said, "Is it? Did I hear your name is Rosemary?" And I sort of just wanted to crawl under the, and you know, into a corner. And I didn't answer him. And he said, "Can you tell us of your experiences?" And I looked at him, and I said that, you know, I have had no experiences. And I put my head down, and he said, "But I think you have." And I said, "But I haven't." And he said, but I think you have. Would you tell us about them?" And the next thing I know, I'm no longer in that room. Nowadays, I would know I'd obviously gone into a trance state, weirdly, for no reason apparently that I could fathom at the time. And instead of all of these people sitting staring at me, I was looking at a grey ocean. Now, this kind of thing had happened to me before many, many times, but never in company, never anywhere other than by myself. I couldn't stop it. It just 1 minute I was in that room with those people, the next minute I was somewhere else, and I was staring at a grey ocean, and it was very choppy and dark. And as I watched the dark clouds overhead, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see this huge ship coming into view, and it was sort of very, very slowly, slowly, slowly coming into view. And as I watched it, it became sort of just, you know, sort of facing it. And I noticed that there was a woman on the ship. There was a woman on the deck, and I could hear her calling and calling. And as she came further into view, I noticed with a shock that this lady had no face. Where her features would have been, was simply blank, like a white blank mask, if you like. And her hands were outstretched over the rail of the ship, and she was calling out, and slowly, 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 the ship is moving, 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 and she's calling out, and she's calling out, seemingly she was calling out to me, "Help us, please, please, help us." And as I watched the ship move past, and she's still calling to me, and she's still reaching out her arms to me, and as I watched, the ship tipped up and sank into the ocean. And this lady with no face sank into the ocean with the ship. And then, as quick as a flash, there it was again, coming again from my right side and moving, moving, moving slowly. And again, the lady with no face. She was wearing a long grey dress with some sort of a badge on the thing. She was reaching out her arms to me, reaching her arms out fiercely to me, and calling, pleading, pleading, pleading with me, help us, please help us. And again, slowly the ship went by and sank again. And this happened 3 times. And after the third time, I found myself in this room filled with people who were looking at me. They were terrified. I was terrified. My face was drenched. I'd been crying without even knowing it. And without even knowing it, I was also describing what I was seeing there and what was happening to me. And my face was drenched. I was wearing a silk blouse, which was also drenched, and it was, and I knew I'd been caught, because this was not the first time, not the same vision, but this was not the first time things had happened to me. But I was always by myself before, and all I could think was, I have to get out of here. I have to leave. And so someone somewhere brought me a cup of tea, shoved it into my hands. I was trembling like a leaf, and then some really nice Scottish guy leapt up out of his chair, grabbed his wife's shoulder, hauled her out of the chair, and started screaming and screaming and screaming at me that this was all fixed, it was all planned, and that I suppose he meant the host, we'd all planned it to frighten us. He was obviously really frightened by it, and he sort of left shouting. At the very end, he shouted the weirdest thing, "And you wear too much makeup," which was really weird, because I only wore then what I wear now, which is I've got nothing on my face at all. But anyway, so it was such a weird thing to happen, and they left, and then people sort of started buzzing around me, and my friend who had brought me came over, and I said to her, we need to leave, and she was more than ready to leave, and she took me home. We drove home in silence. She screeched up to the house. She normally would have driven into the driveway, but no, she left me at the top of the driveway, practically threw me out of the car, and drove off. And I didn't hear from her for a while after that, because I don't know, it was such a frightening thing. But there we have it. The lady with no face represented all of those people in the spirit world. They seem to have no faces. They seem to be down at the bottom of the ocean, under a grey churning ocean. We can't see them anymore, so therefore we think that they're not there. And I was being asked in this odd way to be the voice of the spirit world, which I discovered later was the purpose. But it was a very dramatic way for it to happen, I have to say. And I just was so afraid that these people had seen me, and that they would somehow report me to child services or something, that that the gig would be up, and I would be discovered to be crazy. And some people think I am, but I know that a little bit of crazy is the best thing you can be. Anyway, that's the story, Chris. I'm not quite sure why you wanted me to tell you that, but there it is. Let's have some comments or questions. I know we're coming close to time, but
Yeah, we're right up at time. But the reason why I wanted you to share that, Rosemary, is we started off today talking about you and I in the midst of a conversation about cleaning house, and both of us having messages from our fathers about what to do. Then we have Barbara basically saying, "My husband's been gone for coming up on 2 years, and I miss him, and I don't see him, and I don't feel those kinds of things, and I wish I did." And then your story having to do with all of us have somebody there in the spirit world that wants to connect with us in whatever
always.
way we can.
All of us have someone, all of us. There's not one person who doesn't have. And people say to me sometimes, "But I don't know anyone who died." Well, you might not know them, but they know you. It could be a grandfather, it could be a great grandfather, it could be, but we all have people in our family, people who love us. We all have people in the spirit world who just would like to connect with us in one way or another, or if not to connect with us, to let us know that they are there with us. And that's my job. So I'm still, after all these years, helping, as I was asked. "Help us," she called. "Please help us." And I try my very best in every way possible. And I always remember that, even though I know you're all listening and you're all perhaps fascinated and so on, but I have to tell you that my first and most important role in this is to be the voice of the spirit world, to do this for them. And when I do this for them, we all of us benefit one way or another. Any further comments or questions, Chris?
Well, there's always more than we can say in a show, Rosemary, so it really depends. You wanna end here, or do you wanna take a question or 2?
Take a question or two.
Okay, Gabriella says, "Can I ask you something? Maybe you can help me. I have everything in my life, but I've been so sad this week that I can't stop crying. I don't know why. Why?" So that would be helpful if you could help solve it, and thanks a lot.
Maybe maybe you're connecting in some way with someone you know and you love who is sad, and you're sensitive and feeling their sadness. It may well be that there's someone in the spirit world who is connecting with you, who is going through a tough time or a difficult time right now, maybe just wanting you to notice them. Who knows why it is, my darling, but don't let it ruin the positiveness that you have. Work on what is good about your life, not what is negative.
Judith says, "Several deaths and traumas within my family very recently. Despite prayer and healing, I am feeling very down, very down. Do you have any help or advice?"
Well, I think I mentioned this the other day. We did the healing show on Monday. When we give healing, we don't give healing to the physical self. We don't send our prayers to heal the physical self. We send our prayers because we want to help the spiritual self. And if that works, and it always does, in my opinion, when we give healing, when we send healing, that does not mean that we're asking for a physical cure. It simply means that we're asking for peace and joy and for light to enter the soul of that person. And you also have to remember, Judith, death is not a punishment. Death is simply the next stage that we all go on, and it's a joyful, uh, it's a really joyful experience that people, when they come back to talk about it, they'll often say how wonderful and how marvelous it is. I know that you are missing these people. I know how sad it is, and I know how hard it is to miss someone. I miss my daddy after all of these years, still miss my daddy, and my brother. So I know we feel sad for ourselves, but please, please, please understand that we should. I feel joyful for my daddy. I feel joyful for my brother. I feel joyful for them because, they're still, after all these years, they are still here with us. They are still watching us and watching over us, and they're still doing a great job and having a lot of fun where they are. So please, think of it that way.
All right, last one. Andrew says, "I've read that there may be a soul mission that we are here to fulfill. Maybe not. The sort of books that I read, uh, let's see, but how do we know if we are in alignment or not, or that due to our personality we are going off track? Also, is there some correct thinking that when we think I'm having a bad day, that what happens in the day that we think is bad is exactly in alignment with our soul and what we came to learn?"
I think that when we go through difficult days, as you put it, or some people difficult months and years even, I think these difficulties are, we're meant to go through them because they teach us, don't they? In the long run, they teach us how strong we are. They teach us how capable we are, and the mission that we have, all of us in our lives, when we are born here to this earth, our mission is to grow, to learn. Some of us do that beautifully, wonderfully, and some of us struggle with it. But part of the struggles in life are the lessons that we have in order to help us grow. It's about growing in a spiritual sense. It's about feeding the soul. It's about becoming more of who we possibly can be. And, whether you're on the right track or the wrong track, I don't think is the issue. We are on a track and we make choices as we go along. And if we're sensible, we make choices that are good for us and choices where we can learn and grow. And even when we find ourselves in those dark days or those depressed days, it's a learning process. We're on a learning curve here. That's our mission. we learn. We're here to learn, to grow, and to become more of who we possibly can be in a spiritual sense, as much as in a physical sense. Okay, well, that's it. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Chris. You've done a great job as always. Thank you, everyone, for being with us here today. We do hope you liked our sort of story time, really, wasn't it? Anyway, and I'd also like to say thank you to Grey Eagle, as always, for being with us. On Saturday, we should be doing our story time once again. We may be doing an off the cuff. I'm picking my friend up. She's coming from Canada tomorrow, so she'll be around. We might even do an off the cuff or something over the weekend. You never know what we're going to be doing. You never know what we're going to be up to. I do believe we're doing on next Monday another healing session. If you missed our healing session, you can go onto YouTube. You can go to my YouTube channel and put in Healing Hands Around the World, and you'll find, we did a great healing session on Monday. We're doing another one, I think. Are we, Chris?
On the 23rd at 4 p.m.
Oh, on the 23rd at 4 p.m. So there you have it. Just remember that next week is my birthday. We'll be doing cooking this weekend as well. I can't give you the time, the date, or any of that because I've got to sort it out, but I'm having a dinner party on Sunday. I'm making rack of lamb. It is sort of like the precursor to my birthday. So I'm having sort of a birthday dinner with friends who are coming in the early afternoon. So I'll definitely be cooking something on Saturday. We'll film it and let you see it, I promise you. And anyone who wants the recipe, just email Chris at rosemaryaltea.com, KRIS at rosemaryaltea.com. If you want to be a bottom bricker, please feel free. Go to our website, rosemaryaltea.com, to find more about us. Until I see you all again, thank you once again for watching. Until I see you all again, please, 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 everybody, have a very, very blessed rest of the day and have a very blessed weekend. Bye-bye.